Hi everyone. We're doing another one of our programs on My Dog and Me, and generally we do them, of course, at the Bark Park, and many times we've been at some of the local veterinarian offices, and also at the Bark Park and the Doghouse. But today what we want to do, instead of focusing on particular breeds, which you know we've been doing recently, we want to spend some time to educate the general public on shelters. We've got some awfully great shelters in the northwestern Pennsylvania area, and I've invited them today to be here and explain to us what their particular shelter does, how they differ from one another, their location, and things like that. So I think to get started, we've got 4 people here representing. I'm going to let each one of them introduce themselves and what shelter they are with. So we'll start with Eric.
Hi, I'm Eric Pollock, representing Because You Care.
Hi, I'm Kelly Roderick. I represent Strayhaven Animal Shelter in Greenville.
Tina Zakis-Telecki, I represent Crawford County Humane Society here in Meadville, PA.
I'm Stevie Hargenrater, and I represent the Anna Shelter in Erie, Pennsylvania.
Okay, let's go back to the beginning and tell us something about that shelter. Where is it located? What does it basically do? Background about the shelter, anything like that you can add to the better understanding of your particular place. And we'll start again with Eric.
Sure. Because You Care was founded in 1981. We opened a physical shelter between 4 and 5 years ago, February of 2015, but we're not a new organization. In 1981, the group was a grassroots effort and has grown with volunteers and donations into what we are today. We help stray, owner surrender, and rescue dogs and cats.
Where are you located?
We're 3 miles south of 90, right alongside 79, just west of 79 on the McCain exit.
So if they're coming up from this area down here in the Meadville area, of course, everybody around can watch this particular program. But they would be coming north on 79 if they're coming up from the Meadville area, which is where we are right now. And then they would get off the McCain exit, take a left?
Take a left off the McCain exit.
And you're right there, aren't you?
Just the first left right after the interstate, that's right.
And do you basically just do dogs and cats, or what?
Dogs and cats. From time to time we'll get a request for a rabbit. Every once in a while a farm animal like a pig will show up on our property and we'll try to get that back to the owner, but we focus on dogs and cats.
Okay, next one. Kelly, what about you? Tell us a little bit about Strayhaven.
Yeah, I work for Strayhaven, the manager there. It was a facility that was built and developed in the 50s. It was a group of people that, you know, took in stray dogs and wanted to help animals, and they got overwhelmed with the stray dogs and cats that they had in their homes, so they built a building, and we've been there ever since. It's we take in strays, owner surrenders. We do a lot of vetting. We're known for taking in the injured and, you know, bringing them back to health and finding good homes for them. We do have an application process. It takes a couple days to process. We do background checks and have references, and we're located on 94 Donation Road.
Okay, now where's that?
It's parallel.
It's what, in Greenville?
Yes.
Correct.
If you, Donation Road kind of runs parallel to Main Street, so it's kind of like behind the Tractor Supply and
not too far from Walmart too, so
No.
it's closer to Walmart, Tractor Supply, and it's that area. And if they get close to there, they're not far from Strayhaven.
Right.
What's the capacity at your place?
We can hold up to 27 dogs, and the cats, we can hold not a lot of cats. Wish I could hold more because our cat room is kind of small, but we could probably hold like up to 30 cats in-house. We do have kitties like in fosters.
Okay. Eric, how big is yours? What's the capacity at Because You Care?
Sure. Our cat building is probably at capacity. We could have 50 or a little more than that. And it's quite honestly, it's a house with cats in it. It's a very unconventional approach to sheltering cats. We have 5 or 6 different rooms that we can have cats that are compatible with one another in it. The dog center, we have 11 kennels plus an isolation kennel. But we've taken a little bit of a different approach. Because we were founded in 1981 and didn't build a shelter until a handful of years ago, we were a foster home-based rescue. So that continues to be part of our DNA.
Okay.
We have a vast foster home network for dogs and cats. So total capacity, we could probably have a few hundred cats in our custody and a few dozen dogs in our custody.
Okay, we'll come back to that foster because I know that's very popular in many places too.
Sure.
Okay, Tina, you're next. Tell us about the Crawford County Humane Society.
Crawford County Humane Society was actually funded in 1952. They built a building for it in 1972, which is still where we're located. We are at 11012 Kennedy Hill Road here in Meadville. We can house 40 dogs and about 45 cats probably if we can keep them together like litters of kittens and that. But we only have 28 cat cages in our building, so we can't hold a lot of kitties. Now, we do take in primarily dogs and cats, but occasionally we get a rabbit or two, and we...
You haven't had any
Especially
turtles?
this time of year, right?
Yeah.
After Easter.
Not turtles so much. We have
Ducks, chickens?
We've had people call to give us ducks and chickens, but we recommend them to farms and things that are more equipped for that type of livestock.
So if I'm trying to find you and you're off of 322 on the way to Meadville, and if someone gets to near Chovy's or Sheets or Applebee's,
If you turn and come between Sheets and Al's Melons and come behind Giant Eagle, we're right there on the left.
perfect, I think I can find you. Pretty easy to find. Okay, off to the next one. Stevie, tell us about Anna Shelter.
Oh, where do I even start? They were founded by Ruth Thompson about 15 years ago in June. There's just so much. They do so much. There are 5 veterinarians on staff. Our shelter is on 10th Street in Erie, so if you go up 79 and take 12th Street exit, you would go down about 5 miles and then turn left on Payne, and then when you get to the stop sign, you'll turn right on 10th, and they're about a half mile down on the right. We can house about 80 or 90 dogs and up to 130 cats. We don't just do dogs and cats. ANNA actually stands for Association for Needy and Neglected Animals, all domesticated animals. We have 2 cruelty officers, myself and Eric Duckett. We have a cruelty division and we cover everything. So we do farm inspections and we end up with all kinds of stuff from sheep to tortoises, cats, dogs, birds. We had a bird the other day trying to bite my finger. That was fun. I love it. I live for it. And the thing I love most about the ANNA shelter is they are mostly about community outreach. It's about helping the people help themselves, help their animals. We have a cruelty division, but Eric and I are mostly boots on ground educating people. It's not unless there's an absolutely heinous crime that we're going to charge. We're mostly about, you know, if somebody's in a hard spot, we're going to get them the food they need. Or a lot of calls we get are overpopulation. These people have just, you know, they tried to do a good thing by bringing in this stray cat, and the stray cat was pregnant. They couldn't afford to get it spayed, and now they have all these cats that want to breed, and it gets into a problem. And so we end up helping them spay and neuter them, and we can help them with low cost because we have veterinarians on staff. And I love that we help the community. That's my biggest thing.
Okay. The other person who's sitting at the table beside me, who keeps me on track and keeps on reminding me what I should be doing. As a matter of fact, you probably can't see it. She kicks me underneath the table whenever I'm misbehaving or I say something wrong, so they can't see you kick me. Introducing to you Robin Peterson. Robin, tell us what you're here for.
Well, I'm here because Sue said I had to be. And
That's always a good reason.
You can be very forceful. I needed tech space, so I had to come. But I represent Red Ball Dog Academy, and so I train, and we have lots of rescues as students, and I like to be able to pass as much information on to my students as I possibly can. And there's a lot of times where I'll get a call and say, hey, we need to rehome a husky, or we need to rehome something, can you help? So it's kind of nice to know what you guys all do. So if it's up in your area and it's an immediate thing, I could get a hold of you guys. So.
And she's also the one that many of you remember or have seen several times when we've done the breed programs or whenever we've done some of the medical ones and anything that's involving any programs with Armstrong. I always generally talk Robin into helping me if I can fit her into the schedule. So that kind of helps us a lot. Okay, let's talk about how do you get most of your pets? Or what are the various, well, let's go back. What are ways that shelters and places that you have, how do they get their dogs and their cats? Eric, let's start with you.
Sure.
Give us your opinion, we'll go down the line, and the next question we'll start at Stevie and
Okay.
go back the other way.
Sounds good. We get our animals around 4 different ways. Stray animals can come to us, someone picks up a stray. Owner surrenders, the overpopulation problem. Sometimes we'll get a call and say, I've got too many animals, can you help? We also have animals that are born in our care. So if we intake a stray or an owner surrender and that dog or cat happens to be with a litter, they're born into our care. And then the final way that we supplement our population when we have the resources to do so is we rescue from other shelters around the area and in the region.
Do you ever get any that come in from out of state?
We get quite a few that come in from out of state. I always tell people that we're very fortunate in the Erie area in particular because we have a handful of shelters that are trying to help the stray and owner surrender demands of our area. The Anna Shelter is one, the Humane Society is another. We've got 2 or 3 others in that area that are helping. Sometimes that frees up resources that because you care, because the stray or owner surrender need is just not as high as in other areas of the country. So we bring in a large number of dogs, in particular from partner shelters in Kentucky who lack aggressive spay-neuter programs that could be low cost. In the South, views on pet ownership tend to be a little bit different than how we look at things here. So we help those overpopulated shelters so they don't have to make tough decisions on the future of some of those lives.
I don't know how many of you have dealt or know Matt Pye, and he transports an awful lot. He has done programs for me, and I usually run into him whenever he's vendoring at a particular event. And I think the last count there was, what do you say, 3,000 dogs now that he has transported. And I believe that they bring a lot of those up from the south. They stop them off generally in some place around St. Louis, then they pick them up there, and then they go on from there. And they're, unfortunately, in my opinion, a lot of them tend to be breeds that people don't particularly want, and they tend to overbreed, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they tend to sometimes overbreed a lot of pits and stuff like that down in the south, and after a while you get so many of them, you've got to try and move them out a little bit and get them some other place. But he does an awful lot of that too. And I think whenever there's been disasters certain places. I know whenever there was the flooding down in near Alabama or in that area, that a lot of them were going over to various shelters down there, and a lot of them I think made it up to this way too.
That's true. I just saw Matt on Saturday. He helps transport some dogs from our shelters in Kentucky to us into our foster homes. I think Matt might be up to 5,000. I think I heard him say.
Maybe it was 5, and I thought it was 3, but it could have been 5.
We'd have to check with him. It's an astonishing number. Those transport groups, they're great people. It's a separate organization from ours. They volunteer their cars, their time, and the expense of fuel to move animals our direction. I know we did a rescue effort during Hurricane Katrina. Most recently, we did one in Florida for Hurricane Irma. We try to reach out whenever we know those areas of the country are going to be stressed for resources with strays and owner surrenders.
Okay, Kelly, what about how does Strayhaven get most of theirs? Same way or a little bit different?
Yeah, they're usually strays, owner surrenders. We get a few families that someone passes away, or they have to go to the hospital and the family can't take on the responsibility of the pet, so they bring it to us.
How does a stray get to you? In other words, if I see one on the road and I'm down near the Greenville area and I don't know what to do with the dog, I come knocking on your door, do I contact you, do I call you, what do I do? Do I carry this poor little pet over to you? How does this work with a stray?
Normally people call and say, a stray wandered onto my property, or and they actually have it in their possession. We'll have them bring it in and we'll scan them and we'll post a picture, and we keep the dog for 10 days to try and find the owner. If the dog is at large and they can't catch it, we have them call Kane Kuzer, our dog warden, and he goes out and gets the dog.
And tries to get the dog.
Yes. Actually, the other day, we usually don't get dogs at large, but there was a guy in Greenville. He found a stray dog walking down Main Street. He didn't want her to get hit, so he grabbed her and he took her into his apartment and gave her something to eat because she was pretty thin. And I said, well, you know, he didn't have a vehicle. He couldn't bring her up. So I said, well, I have to go to the bank, you know, make a deposit, so I'll just swing by and get the dog.
You were the transport.
Yeah, so I, you know, went and got her. And it turned out she was someone's pet, and she just had puppies. And I could tell because she, you know, she was bagging up. So we really wanted to get her to her owner because we knew there was puppies, and within an hour of posting her, they found her and was able to come and get her and take her back. But usually that's how it is. Either Kane brings them in if they're at large, or if someone does, able to get the dog, we'll bring him in. And usually if the family passes away or is ill, then they...
I'm not a fan of Facebook at all. I mean, I think it's unfortunately something we all end up using. But my God, constantly on Facebook, every day, found there's a dog walking on Main Street, there's a dog up by the college, there's a dog near Greenville or whatever, and then everybody seems to get on the bandwagon, they start showing pictures, and eventually, in most cases, they get picked up pretty fast by the owners, if the owners want them back.
I've posted on Facebook and had within minutes like 1,000 views and shares, and when it works out great, it's like within a couple hours the owner can come and get the dog. So
Yeah, it can be a good venue.
Yeah.
It really can, to get the word out. It happens fast.
Okay, Chris, how do you get them? Same way? Christina, I'm sorry. Why did I say that? I apologize. See, there's one of my mistakes. That's only one, Kevin. That's only one mistake today. Okay.
Our dogs and cats, we get a lot of stray cats in Crawford County. Anybody can bring in a stray cat in Crawford County, so we take in all strays.
Any time of the day?
Noon to 5, Monday through Thursday, they must be contained in a cat carrier, a Humane trap, or a box sealed shut with holes. We also take in stray dogs, owner surrenders. Our strays do have to be admitted by our dog warden or your local law enforcement office, though.
I don't understand that. Explain that to me. In other words, I can't just...
You can't just say...
I can't just find a dog and bring it to you.
Correct.
Okay, and what do I have to do?
You contact the dog warden or your local law enforcement. If you bring a dog, how do I know it's not your dog that you're trying to say? Okay,
And people would do that,
Yeah.
obviously.
So I'm going to say it's a stray, and then I don't have to. There are fees and things when you're surrendering an animal. But we do take in owner surrenders. People get sick, family members. There are paperwork that we fill out and take them in as well.
The strays just, if I call the dog warden and if I call the police, then there's no fee whatsoever. That dog is just taken in.
Correct.
Okay, but if I want to surrender a dog,
Then depending upon how big it is and things, necessary needs, then there is a small fee to admit them to our shelter.
I have to go back for a minute before I get to you, Steve. But what do you two do with people that walk in with a dog that's a stray? Do they have to pay?
if it's a stray, no, we don't make them pay. But if it's an owner surrender, yes.
Surrender, yes. Eric, what about you?
We don't have fees for either a stray submission, surrender, or an owner surrender. We do ask for a donation, but there's not a set fee for us taking the responsibility and transferring ownership to us for that.
Do most people give you a donation?
The folks who are asking for our help surrendering their animals are usually not in a position financially to give us a donation. Those surrendering strays to us oftentimes will, and we receive many donations upon adoption as well, in addition to our adoption fees. So we kind of make up for that lack of a fee structure on the other side.
Okay, Stevie, how many dogs, or how do they get to your place at Anna's Shelter?
Well, we do stray intake, and usually that's us transporting them. We'll get a call, and we'll just get them, or people can bring strays to us. We also do owner surrenders, and that's based on space availability. We are no-kill, so if we don't have room for it, we will ask them, can you hold on to it till Thursday and call back, and if we have room, we'll let you know. But the community needs to be responsible for their pets too, and they shouldn't call until it's last minute. They shouldn't wait. It should be, if they need help, then they have to help us help them. So if we have space, we take them. I don't believe there's a fee for owner surrender, because if a lot of people aren't in a financial position, if they're at the point where they're surrendering their pet, it's because life's not been good to them.
No.
And a lot of calls we get also are to the cruelty division. We'll show up at a call, and it starts as a cruelty call, and it ends up being people that just need help. And so we end up with owner surrenders from cruelty calls that, so, there was 21 dogs at this house the other day, and they took very good care of them. It was just a lot of dogs, and they were like, that would be really great if you guys could take like 6 of them, and then we could get help spaying and neutering the rest, and everybody's happy. So we end up, cruelty calls turn into owner surrenders a lot of the time, much of the time, even with horses. We have an equine facility with veterinarians on staff, so we end up with a lot of large animals people get a horse because they're awesome, you know, they're beautiful and they smell good and they're like man's best friend, like a dog, but better. But they don't understand how expensive horses can be. They don't understand the upkeep of having their teeth floated, the dental needs. They don't understand how expensive it is to have a farrier come out and trim their hooves every 6 weeks. And how much a horse has to eat to maintain its body weight. And some people, you know, they see a thin horse and they're like, I'm gonna rescue it and bring it home. And they have no idea that they're gonna have to up the feed intake on this animal and the minerals. And so they get themselves in a position where they're neglecting an already neglected animal, and they had no idea the financial responsibility it was going to be. And that's when we get the call. And we go out, we evaluate the situation, and a lot of times they just surrender them. So same thing with just most animals. A lot of it, cruelty calls turn into owner surrenders. We do a lot like that. Also, we take in pregnant animals, so a lot of the animals are born in our care as well. And if there's a death in the family, we get calls to go into the home and remove the animals, and yeah, so.
Do you ever have trouble with that?
What do you mean?
Getting a dog out of a house in a death call, or in situations where the dog is just not one that you say, hey, come here, and it came over to you, but you actually have a problem getting them out. Can that happen to all of you, I guess?
It can, but we have behavioral specialists, and Ruth pretty much vets all of our people, and if you're not sound mind and level-headed and pretty good on your feet with everything, then she's probably not gonna hire you. She's great. But you have to be able to act on your feet and pinch, and situations happen, but we have catch poles if we need them. Very rarely do we need them. Patience.
And catch pole, that's the one that has the loop on the end of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
But patience goes a long way, and so does love. So sit down with some treats and talk to them. That's the best way to do it.
Eric, you look like you wanted to add something to something they were saying.
There was an interesting point touched on there when you were answering that question about shared responsibility with the public. We're also a no-kill shelter, which means if we have a desperate need for an animal to come to us, we may not have space. We're not a shelter that is open intake that way, because we're always full, right? We're always at capacity. And that's a good thing. You would hate to walk into Because You Care and see that we're at half capacity, because that means there's dozens of animals out there that need help and we're not helping them. So we're always at capacity. We use our foster homes to help offset the demands that come into us from owner surrender, death in the family, stray. But there are times when there's a waiting list, and we'll work with you. We'll help maybe get vet care for that animal if you're willing to keep it in the meantime. We work with some of the other local agencies. Hey, do you have any openings at this point or not? Usually not, because we're all at capacity all the time. But there is a component of partnering with the community, and we do that as well. Giving them the resources that they need until we have room to bring those animals in. And notifying us as early as possible goes a long way. I can't tell you how many times we get the call and someone's moving, and they're moving tonight, or
Yep.
Yes, the trucks are loaded, we're moving now.
And the dog's on the curb and
Right.
something.
yeah, or they're having surgery at noon. So we don't like responding to situations like that because we know they're preventable. So it's really important to get the message out to the public that the sooner you can give us word that you're going to need help, the more likely we're going to be able to meet that need before you need it.
Can you help somebody in a temporary situation? And I'll tell you why I'm asking you that. I do a lot of the pet therapy work, and I run into a lot of schools, and I'm dealing with a lot of the principals and people like that. And I had a phone call a week ago from one of the teachers at a local elementary school. And they said, we've got a family that's going to be homeless, and they have a dog. Can you help? And my comment was, yes, I'll do anything I can for you. I will take the dog. I will keep the dog as long as I have to keep the dog. That's not an issue. I can write that off without a question. My two questions were, in my situation, this isn't to you, my two questions were, what kind of a dog is it? Because at the dog park where we have a few restrictions insurance-wise on the type of dogs I can take, and the dog passed that, the second question was, do you have a shot record? What's the shot record? The question then became if the people that had the dog had gotten the dog from somebody else and didn't know the shot record. I said, okay, well, you've got to see if you can get that first. And then I said, then we've got to see what shots you have. And then at the same time, some of the shots don't take effect right away. especially because we require kennel cough, and that has another factor there. And I said, so I don't know if I can help you, but if we can get all those things in place, I can help you. I will take the dog. I will keep the dog as long as I have to. But, and one other step on that too, because I had another situation. I've been trying to do something with women's services. Nothing upsets me more than somebody who's in an abusive situation and cannot get out because they won't leave the dog. And I personally, I wouldn't leave my dogs
I
either.
get a lot of those calls, actually, because a lot of the times that a woman's being abused, it started with the pets.
Sure.
He was beating the pets before it became a domestic abuse. And so
Who
women's
can help us
services,
with that? Can you all
women's
help with that?
services calls me a lot.
Okay.
A lot. And I'll go to the hospital and I'll sit with her, and a lot of times I've cried with them. Like, it's hard, you know, and change is hard. And stepping out of that situation that they're stepping from it's hard because this is what they're used to, and you have to be able to understand that. But a lot of them don't want to leave their pet. And the other day I had one, and she had her dog at the home, and she was like, I don't know what to do because I don't have anybody to take her, and I don't want to surrender her to, you know, a shelter. And I was like, well, if she's vaccinated, I'll keep her in my office. Like, I'm cool with it. And she's like, well, I don't think she is, because he was in control of the funds this whole time.
Sure.
Control.
No record whatsoever.
And I was like, well, is there anybody? She's like, my daughter gave me this dog and I don't want to give her up. And I was like, was your daughter take her back? And she's like, my daughter's an hour and a half away. And I was like, I'll drive the dog. I will drive the dog. So we didn't get back till midnight that night. We drove the dog. And but what people don't understand is domestic abuse is huge. And the animals involved, they need therapy too.
Sure.
So we do a lot with women's services, and I kudos to them because that's heart-wrenching work. But I also do a lot with, the VA called me the other day because, I don't know, in Crawford County, if they hear of a dog, if there's a dog, they're like, call Stevie. So, okay, I'll answer. The VA called the other day. They had a veteran who needed like life-saving treatment, and he'd had his dog for 18 years and he wouldn't leave it. Mm-hmm. So they were like, Stevie, what do we do? And I was like, I mean, I guess I'm gonna go get his dog. So I had his dog for a week, and he talked to her twice a day on the phone, and he's alive, and I got to take her back.
What about the shelters? Can anybody help in a situation like that? Can you take a dog to your place, keep that dog for a period of time until the family can get them back? I know that you were lucky because they had a daughter or they had somebody that you could transport them, but do shelters do
I
that?
brought the veteran's dog in my house.
Yeah, well, and you can only hold so many
I
in
can
your
only
office
hold
or
so
your
many.
house.
Yes.
So what is the avenue for is that anything that's in your description?
We can't hold animals like that due to shot records and things, and then it requires a second license for boarding. We don't have one.
Right.
We
That's
only
true.
have a kennel license.
Right.
The Anna shelter is very good about, so I always encourage people to have an emergency response, you know, like you have an emergency situation lined up for your kids, like a support system for your kids. You should do the same for your dogs and your pets, because you never know when something's gonna happen to you. If you're gonna have emergency surgery, or, you know, you could pass away. There needs to be something lined up for your pets.
So you can take all 5 of mine if something happens to me.
No, I'm saying
Or you don't want all
people
five?
need to be responsible for their pets. They need educated on it. There are boarding facilities who can take pets, but they don't think about it, a situation until they're in it. So having your pet vaccinated as well as you can and up to date, and those records available for whoever needs to transport that dog. So if you're in the hospital, and a lot of times the police call me and they're like, so we have somebody on the way to the hospital, what are you gonna do? And I was like, is the dog vaccinated? Well, let's look for records, and they'll get permission from the owner for us to enter the home, look for shot records. If they're up to date, we can transport them to a boarding facility, and a lot of times we'll have funds to pay that boarding facility. Maxfield Pet Resort's great.
Oh, yeah, and I said I would take them too. My problem was, I was stuck when I got to the shot issue, because I didn't have.
Well, and that's where the Anna shelter helps.
Right.
We have wellness clinics, and they will vaccinate that animal and do everything they can to keep that animal with its owner when they're ready to take it back.
Right, but of course, some shots aren't immediate.
Yeah, there's the
That's
3
problem.
weeks, there's the
little
Bordetella,
range of time.
yeah, so, and there's a time frame, and that's how I end up with them in my office until they get their booster.
Carrie, do you ever have situations where people call you like that, or you, Eric?
Yeah,
Or-
yes, and we are a non-kill shelter too. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. That's an important thing. We're non-kill, so we're always full too. I helped one man that was down on his luck. He was homeless. He was in the hospital, and you know, I had a kennel, and I did keep the dog. I don't require the shot records because we get strays that I have no idea what shots they have, and since, you know, we're a shelter, I kept her, you know, just like she was a stray. She had a 10-day hold. She wasn't to be walked or with, you know, the other dogs.
So she's isolated during that time?
Yeah, she's in her own kennel, and, you know, and she's not
Right.
allowed to be around the other dogs or other people. And he did come back, and he did donate some money once he got on his feet, and it was, I think it was a couple weeks. But I don't, when people call and I tell them, we are not a boarding kennel, and I give them names of local kennels in the area.
So that is your issue in this. If somebody needs a temporary, none of you are boarding kennels, and
Right.
that is a whole separate,
And if, yeah.
Okay.
And if, yeah.
I'm boarding, I can board at my place, but I can't take them if they don't have the shots. That comes back to that
so
again.
Eric, you said you bring up dogs from the south a lot. Okay, so as a personal pet owner, I have a question.
Sure.
Do you screen them for heartworm?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, it's a very good question. In the south, heartworm's a lot more prevalent than here.
And it's here now
Yeah,
because,
anywhere you've got a mosquito
Katrina,
population, you
right,
run the risk of
right.
an animal getting heartworm. We have them screened for heartworm at the vet clinics in Kentucky prior to coming to us, and then we rescreen them again a few weeks later.
okay.
There is a period of time where you could have a dog with heartworm that tests negative. It's actually several months.
6
Right.
months.
But we do
Yeah.
test at least a few weeks apart to know that we can show a potential adopter, here's the negative result from our vet clinic. We have a clinic right on site, and we contract vets to come work right there with us. We can show them with certainty that we gave them a dog or a cat that was heartworm negative at that time. If they find that a few months later the dog does develop heartworm, because you can have a negative test for 6-8 months, we will take on the cost of treating that animal to eradicate it from heartworm.
Okay, so let's, okay,
The other question I wanted to ask, if I may, so if you could go down the line, how do you screen the people that are adopting your animals?
Well,
What is your process?
can I stop for 1 minute?
Yeah.
Let's go back, I want to go back one step first.
Okay.
I want to know what you do when you get the dog in, and you can just throw out ideas one at a time, but the dog comes to the door. I want to know what you do from the moment that dog comes in until that dog is adoptable, to make sure that we've got the right dog going out and there's no issues and stuff like that. So why don't you each give me one thing that your place does, and then we'll see what all we get. Eric, let's start
Sure,
with you.
every pet that comes to Because You Care, whether it's a transfer from another shelter, an owner surrender, a stray, they immediately go into foster care. They don't actually enter our physical facility until they're through that foster care process.
So they don't see a vet first or anything, they go right to
Well,
foster care?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times whenever animals come to us, there's not a vet office open anywhere in the country.
Okay.
So,
Yeah,
you know, we put them in foster care and then get that appointment scheduled, and then they'll find that appointment. Our foster homes get them up to date on vet exams, shots, et cetera, at our expense, of course, in our vet clinic. But they also, more importantly, evaluate that pet for its behavior.
Okay, wait, let's
That's
stop.
where we were headed. That's
Yeah,
what
we're
we
going
wanted
there,
to
but let's go
know.
back for a minute.
Sure.
So what do you do with the dog that comes to your place as far as getting them prepared down the line, however long it takes, get them adopted? What's the first thing that Strayhaven does?
The first thing we do is, if it's an owner surrender, I would like the people to provide any type of vetting information so we don't double vax the dog. Depending on what they give us as proof of any type of vaccines, the dog is immediately has a vet appointment. If it's an owner surrender. If it is a stray, we do hold the dog for 10 days and do no vetting until we know the owner is going to come forward. I go ahead and make the appointment because usually the vet is 10 days out anyway. So I make the appointment. If the owner comes forward, then I cancel. If not, the dog's already got an appointment to be heartworm tested, Lyme tested.
And all those things?
Yes.
Okay, Chris, what do you do at your place? Chris, I said it again. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna put my name,
Put a big
You can put my name on there.
I'm gonna put your name on your forehead. And then
I'll
every
even put it
time I
backwards so
look,
you can read it.
I will. Well, my eyesight's not real good, so it might be difficult. Anyway, I'm sorry, go back. So what do you do over at the Humane Society? I got that right. the
Owners
Humane Society.
surrenders come in, we look to see if there's any veterinary information. Most of the time, people do not have their shot records in that when they come in. So we'll call the veterinarian and get all their records transferred and faxed over to us so we know what they have and what they don't. Stray dogs, when they initially come in, we do we check their age, their teeth to see if everybody's healthy. If they need immediate vet care, we do transport them down to our vet hospital. Even if it's within the time limit, we do take them if it needs to be.
Do you use the same vet all the time, or do you
We
have
do.
different?
We have a veterinary hospital
Oh,
down
that's
on
right,
Park
Park
Avenue.
Avenue, sure.
We do that too.
So,
Okay.
If it's a 10-day hold, but if it's an injured dog, like,
Right.
Right
it gets
away.
immediate vet.
Yeah, we look for, is the pet symptomatic of anything, or is there any obvious injury? And if so, we do get them to a vet right away.
It's illegal
Let
not
it
to.
suffer.
Yeah, I'm pretty
Days.
sure that's a given. You're
I would
there to
think so,
help
too.
them. You're not
We're
gonna
not-
bring in a dog
we're
that
not
got hit by
dragging
the
them.
car and say you have to wait 10 days. Yeah,
It's bleeding out.
I know. I realize we have to speak those things, but yes.
now the big difference between us and the other shelters sitting here with me, we are an open shelter, which means we do euthanize. And the sad part is we've actually had other shelters contact us to euthanize so they can remain no kill. And that's heartbreaking because that's not fair to those of us that are an open shelter.
I have a friend of mine who worked at the Humane Society in San Antonio, Texas, and she said that the shelters that are no-kill are generally ones that send those dogs to a kill place. And that's how they remain to be the no-kill. I mean, maybe you don't do that.
No.
But there are some that do that. And I agree with you, I've seen that happen quite a bit.
But we are an open shelter at the Humane Society. We can only hold so many. If they're completely sick and injured, we don't want them to suffer. So if humane euthanasia is the answer, then it's better than suffering out there on the streets. So
Okay, we'll come back to, okay, now it's Stevie. They've already talked about getting the dog in the door and making some original evaluations and whether or not you isolate them or whatever. So after we've got the dog in that state, now there's people knocking at your door or that you're going to post online or whatever as the dogs to possibly adopt. What do you do next? What's the next thing that you do with these dogs? Are we going to
Behavioral
temperament them at
testing,
all?
yes.
Okay,
So-
does everybody do that?
Yes.
Some type of behavioral thing?
Yes.
So the dog doesn't take my hand off when I put my, okay, good. Like what? What do they do?
We have a behavioral specialist, and she'll come in and work with them. We, have kids kid test them. I have kids. I'll bring my kids in. Let's see if it works, guys. So, depending on how the dog reacts through the fence, we'll take them out to the play yard, and it's same with dogs meeting dogs. It's a slow integration. You have to know their body language. That's very important, is understanding dog body language is very different than people body language. Just like horse body language is different than goat body language. You have to understand it's a different language. And a lot of people in the general public, they're not really attentive to the dog body language. So Brooke, our shelter manager, is like a pro at that. She is like the woman. I love her. She knows a lot more than I do. So when I was looking to adopt a dog, I brought up my dog and I was like, here, Brooke, do your thing, see if they work. And so we dog test, we kid test, we cat test. We have all kinds of cats in the shelter. Let's walk them through the cat hallway, and depending on how they do, maybe we'll introduce them.
So then you list that on the dog.
Absolutely, and we have to meet, everyone in the home has to come meet that dog before we're letting it go home.
Okay, let's go back to, Kelly, what do you do down at Strayhaven?
We do the same thing. We have a cat room and we, cat test them. We hold them, very close to us. And we have 2 people, one in the cat room and then the one with the dog, to cat test. And as far as temperament, we're pretty good at working with the dogs and their body language and testing them with other dogs that we know are submissive and easygoing dogs that are already in the shelter that we'll test them with. And, if it's an extreme case like that, it's out of our expertise, or we'll have another, what do I want to say?
Trainer.
Trainer, come in and help us out. But most of the dogs come in. We give them a couple days to decompress. You know, I've had many that wanted to fear bite, and I've had many snap at me and got bit, but they were just scared, and, you know, I never held it against them. And actually, it seems like you have a closer bond with the one that actually bit you
Gotcha.
than the one that didn't. So if we give them a couple days and we don't let them really out with anyone until we get them the rabies, you know, we have people come in, I want to walk that dog, but I would rather have its rabies and, you know, up to date first, and then kind of go from, we're the same way. We like to have everyone meet the dog, you know, kids, whatever, too.
Eric, do I have to fill out a form to get a dog from Because You Care?
Yeah.
Do I have to sign my life away?
Yeah, a little bit, no.
Okay, good. Well, no, I should if I'm going to take the dog.
The adoption process, if you want to get into that, at Because You Care starts with an application. That's online on our website, so it's pretty easy for you to apply.
Does everybody use something online that people can get?
Yes.
They have to fill out a form. Do you have to do that?
We have forms that they have to fill out.
And
Yes, we have forms.
yeah, okay, that's fine. We've got a unanimous agreement there. What's next?
Well, prior to all of that, we advertise the dogs on our website and cats on our website and in our physical facility as well, with all of those things that we've learned. Now, we're fortunate enough that we started as a foster home rescue, so we still have a lot of foster homes. So all of the things that they just mentioned, we do the same thing as far as behavior analysis and all of that. But we do it in a less stressed environment than a shelter. We just, I guess, got kind of lucky that we started as a foster home rescue. So we can do those things in a lower stress, more home-like environment with a foster home and learn compatible with cats, dogs, children, etc.
Does anyone else use the foster home deal? Where they go to someplace until they don't stay with you and they go to another place for a while?
It depends on the situation. And a shelter, if we have a dog that we really feel like it needs more, then our shelter workers will take it home with them. It won't stay in the shelter. They'll take it home and work with it. Or another thing, if we have a terminally ill dog that still has quality of life, if it's still eating, drinking, wagging its tail and wanting to play, but we know that it has cancer and it has 6 months, maybe less, we let it go to a respite home. We will not euthanize it. We let it go be loved, you know, for the rest of its life. So,
Oh, wait, you have a respite home. Can people sign up?
Fosters.
People sign up for that? Can people do that with you?
if you call into the shelter and let them know, like, hey, I would love to be a respite home for terminally ill dogs, they'll screen you like an adopter. You're adopting that dog. It's not really a foster, it's an adopter, but a respite home. You know, it's where there's only love for the rest of their days, and that's big. You know, we take in a lot of like really battered animals, like ones that are like near death, but they're savable. We're gonna save them because we have the veterinarians on staff. So those ones take a lot more time before they become adoptable, and a lot of times they'll end up with a special needs home, and we make sure the homes that's adopting them can handle their special needs. So foster homes are great, but it's mostly our shelter staff. It's not really fosters. It's mostly staff or volunteers that we know very well who can take the dog and get it what it needs, or a behavior specialist.
Are there some dogs that just, Tina, that are not adoptable?
Aggressive
And you may,
dogs.
aggressive dogs?
Yeah.
Breeds, certain breeds, or just?
Believe it or
older
not,
dogs?
people will put bad signs on pit bulls.
I love them.
They're not
They're
bad at
some
all.
of the friendliest dogs that come through our facility. Chihuahuas tend to be a little more nippy than
Wiener dogs too.
Ankle biters.
ankle biters. The bigger dogs, we don't have a problem with the bigger dogs. Believe it or not, we can adopt out a lot of pits through our shelter.
I remember one time I stopped to see you, tracking you down, and you made a comment to me, and I've repeated that to so many people. And I remember I said to you, what about some dogs like such, and I gave you examples, and you had a comment, and you probably forget that you even said it. You said, if I wouldn't take the dog to my own home, I will not adopt that dog out. And I thought that was probably the smartest thing I ever heard anyone say that was working with a shelter, because if you're not going to take it to your house where you've got kids and all those
Then
things.
why would you expect somebody else?
Right, and I thought that was wonderful, and I've repeated that several times to people, because you probably would take every dog in the world if you could, but there are some dogs that just aren't adoptable. What other dogs aren't adoptable? You say, oh.
Well, I kind of disagree with that statement, because there are people who are educated in the specific needs of dogs that are high maintenance. Dog-aggressive dogs can be in a home where they're the only dog. If that owner is responsible and has a fenced yard and knows how to maintain that animal, Just because they're dog aggressive doesn't mean they're not going to be the best family pet ever.
But you also have that ability. Let's be clear here. Not that Tina's doing something that's differently and things like that, but you have a much more comprehensive type place at Inner Shelter where you can take that time to do things a little differently. She's dealing with a place where she only has a certain number of kennels and that, and unless someone comes in knocking on that door or is an adoptable pet, and not to be rude, that
And
dog's
we
taking
do
up
tell
space.
people that, hey, this has to be the only dog in the house. This dog doesn't get
Right.
along with other dogs.
Right.
That's not a death sentence.
No, not at all.
Um,
But
But there are dogs and things that come through that if you're just not comfortable of having them in your own house, and I'm not saying it has to be with children, because there are dogs that come in that aren't good with children. But me as a person, if I couldn't live with that dog, then I really can't expect somebody else to live with that dog either.
Anybody else have a comment on that, Eric?
We just spend a lot of time with the animals in foster care understanding what does that picture of a perfect home look like for that individual pet. We're fortunate to have that opportunity to paint that picture, so we know when someone applies, if we already know that this dog was not good with cats in foster care, and someone who applies and we ask the question, do you have other pets, and they say, yes, I have cats, we know this is not going to be a great adoption for you. So we filter those things out immediately, and we spend the time to explain that. As a result of all of that work, we have an extremely low return rate because there are no surprises when you get that pet into the home. I do want to say one thing about the Humane Society and any other shelter that doesn't have the resources that we do or is open intake. If it weren't for those shelters doing open intake and having to make some of those tough decisions, the rest of us wouldn't be able to do what we do.
Correct, and that's a good point to
Right,
make.
so they're a very vital and crucial part of how this whole process works. If we didn't have organizations that were making those tough decisions, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. So thank you for that, and I just wanted to kind of get that message out to the community.
A very important message too, because
Yeah.
that has to happen.
Yeah.
Do any of you allow, you've screened your adopters and you're like, might be a good fit. Is there a trial period for
Or
them?
follow-up?
And to take them home and try?
There's a multi-step process to adoption with us. After the dog is intaked to our adoption center, which is where they usually get placed up for adoption. Though some animals we can place up for adoption in foster care because maybe they're really stressed or they're really old or maybe they're terminal. We'll keep them in foster care and adopt them from the foster home, but the process is still the same. First you have to apply. We check vet references and personal references. And then we do a meet and greet. So if you have other pets, if you have children, the whole family has to come meet that animal while we can witness what that behavior and interaction looks like. Then we start a trial visit. So we'll sign the adoption paperwork, but we give you a couple of weeks or a month to take that pet home with you and really understand, does this pet truly fit into our lifestyle? And if they do not, they come back to us and we just ask, hey, just so we know for the next adopter, what was it that didn't work out for you? Maybe they're too active. Maybe they're not active enough. Maybe they are good with 99 dogs out of 100, but the resident dog that they already had doesn't like the new dog and they're seeing undesirable behavior from their existing pet. We see that quite often. We bring the adopted dog back in off of the trial visit, place it back up for adoption. We do follow-ups during that trial visit period, phone calls, emails, social media, we keep up with them. And even after they've committed to adopt, we call that a finalized adoption, we'll still, on some of the ones that we think we're a little bit of a harder placement, we'll still call and email and ask, hey, how are things going with you? So that support stays there way past the adoption time.
That's nice to know.
Well, you know, we've been talking about dogs because with the dog park, I don't take cats in, obviously.
Sure.
I don't right now, I'd like to. But is it different with a cat? Kelly, different with a cat?
Nope, same process. They fill an application. If it's online, I like to meet the people because you can really judge people by, it's kind of like an interview of meeting them. They come in, they look at the cats, and you know, it's not so much with everybody has to see it, but usually everybody likes to come and see their new addition to their family. They have the option to do a 2-week home visit where we require them to pay the adoption fee up front. They can take the cat or dog home for 2 weeks, and if it works out, great, you come back. You sign the adoption contract and get all your paperwork as far as immunizations and proof of that. If it doesn't work out, you just bring the animal back and we'll give you your money back.
We have the same thing. You have a time limit after you adopt that animal or take it home, that if it's just not working out. But we do meet and greets with dogs. We also know some of our cats that, number one, don't get along with other cats. We have cats that don't get along with dogs. So it just depends upon the household. And we've actually had cats that do better in a low-key household. They don't do well when they're in with a bunch of kids running around, so we place them according to some of their temperaments and things like that.
Does every dog, Stevie, out of Anna's shelter get spayed or neutered?
Absolutely. And if it's too young to spay or neuter, then we're gonna follow and make sure it gets spayed or neutered.
What age do you spay and neuter them?
That's a good question.
I know some
it's pretty
places
early.
do it as little as 6 or 8 weeks of age for dogs, but I've also, if you talk to the vets and get 25 vets in here, they're gonna have a stroke before the heat, after the heat,
Well, and
They've got as
that's
many
just it, is these are
possibilities.
shelter animals. These aren't show animals. People argue that the dog's not gonna grow to its full capacity if it's spayed or neutered too early. These aren't show animals. These are
They're
shelter
pets.
animals. They're pets. They don't need to grow. They don't need to be huge, you know? Like,
Yeah.
they need spayed or neutered, and we need population control. We need population control very badly.
Absolutely, more so, my
More
opinion.
so than a bigger dog. I mean,
Yeah.
how do you even know? Who judges that? I don't know.
Do you spay and neuter them?
We don't require the animal be stuck in our shelter until they're spayed or neutered. However, they do have to sign a contract having that done, and we do follow up with that to make sure that they are done and taken.
There's usually a time limit, isn't there? You have
Yes.
so much time to get
They
that
have so
done.
much time.
Yeah.
Because believe it or not, some of the vets won't do it till they're at least 6 months of age.
Oh, I know, here we go again.
Well, unless there's a medical reason that they can't be spayed or neutered, and then we ensure they're in a home where all the other pets are spayed or neutered. Like a male that might have a heart defect. You know, if an animal has a heart defect or a burn,
can't put it under
you can't put it
anesthesia.
under. So if they have a medical reason they can't be spayed or neutered, then we ensure they're in a home where they're not going to get pregnant or impregnate something else.
Kelly, do you spay and neuter all dogs that
Yes.
leave?
Yes, they are all spayed or neutered. If they are too young, or if they have heartworm and they can't be, spayed or neutered until they're checked to, their heart is okay, it's a foster to adopt situation. And we make sure if there are pets currently in the home that they are spayed or neutered.
What shots do you, if I adopt a dog from Strayhaven, what shots are you gonna make sure that dog has?
Distemper, bordetella, rabies.
Not, you don't do lepto or anything like that? Unless you do that, but that distempered one sometimes is a
It's
little.
usually a
But
virus.
sometimes
It's
lepto's
usually
not
a
in that, it can be, that elk can be missing with that.
Ours
Some of our
is
vets.
included.
Oh, yours?
Yeah.
Okay. Eric, what about you? Do you spay and neuter all the dogs up at because you care?
Yeah, the rule is every single one prior to adoption. We don't require that they're spayed or neutered when they come to us, obviously, but before they're adopted, they will be spayed or neutered and fully recovered from that surgery. In the strange medical cases where they can't be or they're too young, we require special consideration. So the adoption contract in the case of a puppy would be that you have to spay or neuter. We can even offer assistance in doing that in our own vet clinic at a lower cost. So, and there are low-cost clinics in the area that the Anna Shelter provides as well.
Right.
All of the shots, it's the whole array, all of them. We also keep the pet on heartworm preventative, flea and tick treatment. They're also dewormed prior to going home as well.
Okay. My cameraman is telling me that we're getting near the end, but I need to know, tell me the most important thing, everybody tell me the most important thing that you want everybody to remember whenever they are watching this. Not necessarily, don't plug your place, we've been doing that pretty good. But tell me what these people need to know about the shelters or the operation of shelters and the importance of them. Kelly, we'll start with you, because
Okay.
Eric sometimes he just goes on and on, so we're gonna stop him. Then we're gonna go
We're getting paid by
to
word, I
Tina.
You're gonna be paid by word?
Okay, Kelly, what's the most important thing?
I just want everybody to know that Strayhaven strives to take in and take care of all animals that are brought in. We cater to the animal, not to the person, and sometimes that can cause a problem with people, but we do want the dog to be in the best situation possible. we're a non-kill, and that we love what we do, and
Good,
Yeah.
thank you. Tina, you're next. I got it right, didn't I? I'm doing better.
At the end, right?
At the end.
Yes, I get better as time goes
That's what
on.
counts, right?
Our shelter, people misconcept that our animals have a time limit. They do not. Once our animals hit the adoption floor, they stay there till they're adopted. Because believe it or not, we get attached to these animals just like everybody else does. They're not just a shelter dog. They're ours. We go in and love them every day. We have volunteers that come in and take them for walks and play with them. So we're there for the animals. We're not there for the people. And we do make the public unhappy with us sometimes. But you know what? We're not here to make the public happy. We're here to educate you on your animals and to find the animals that don't have homes, loving homes.
Okay, thank you. Stevie?
Just anything or about the shelter?
Just anything. What do you want people to remember?
I want people to know that overpopulation is huge. Adopt, don't shop. Just because you think puppies are cute doesn't mean you should breed your dog. There are so many dogs out there that need homes and that are suffering because there's not room in shelters, and you can't ensure that every puppy your dog has is going to be in a great home forever.
Good point. Eric?
It's a wonderful point. I'll kind of extend that. I work with people all day. I'm a volunteer, so I have another job, and I work with people all day who know what I do it because you care. They've even volunteered alongside me in some cases, and then I'll learn that they just bought a puppy from the pet store or from a breeder, and I think, oh my God. And I try to explain to folks ahead of time, there's still a major misconception out there that shelter pets are broken or unadoptable or they're full of problems. And I always say I would never buy a puppy ever again, because an adult dog that is in need of a home that you can adopt, we already know everything about it. We know if it chews, we know if it's house trained, we know if it gets along well with other dogs or cats or children. You don't necessarily know that about a puppy that you're going to buy, because not everybody knows how to raise that puppy into a dog that is good with dogs and cats and kids and strangers. We can explain the breed mixtures to you that you're not going to understand whenever you buy a puppy from a puppy mill or from a breeder and they say it's a beagle and it grows up to be a Great Dane. It's not what you signed up for.
Well,
We're just better at that than everyone else.
Yes.
Every one of us, we are.
Well, and people say free puppies. No puppy is truly free.
It costs more to vet a
You got-
puppy than it does to
You
adopt
got
a fully vetted
shots.
dog.
You
Right,
got,
right. That first year is extremely expensive, so don't
and then
think there's a
everybody
free puppy.
says,
There's no
well,
such
I
thing.
want a purebred. Believe it or not, your shelters are full of more purebreds than you believe.
Yeah,
there.
I also push back on people that say I want a purebred. I ask why.
Yeah, right.
We have multiple trainers that volunteer with us to help with behavior issues, not only during intake, but also post-adoption support in the home. And one of my favorite quotes from Lynn was, everybody wants a smart dog until they get one.
Yes.
Because those are the ones that need a job. Those are the Jack Russell Terriers,
Yeah,
those
right.
are the Border Collies.
German Shepherds.
So yeah, we deal with the same thing. We all deal with the same problems. Why do you want a purebred dog? By the way, the breeding practices, not to ding every breeder, there are responsible breeders out there. But if you're picking one up from the newspaper or from the pet store that was an irresponsible breeder, I can almost guarantee you that the bloodlines are too close between mom and dad. We see genetic health issues that materialize. You just don't get that with many mixed breeds. So
Usually get the best of both
you
worlds.
get the best of both worlds in the
So
mixed
true.
breed world.
I'm
So I try to
sorry.
talk people into that.
I'm sorry, but my cameraman's going to probably start shooting daggers at me real soon. Thank you very, very much for giving your time. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed being here. I hope we got a lot of good information to everybody. And again, thank you, and we'll hopefully have some other program for you at a later date. Thank
Thanks for
you.
having us.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.